Couple of minutes just to give a chance for some additional people to join the session. So my name is Ollie Parker. I'm on the commercial team here at Blackbird, and I'm also joined this morning, particularly early in his morning, by Jeff Krebs. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody.
Jeff's on our the Blackbird team over in North America, actually based in Toronto, and he's going to be our specialist today, running us through some of the advanced features. Before we get started, couple of quick points. You should see a Q&A button in your Zoom webinar interface. Please just type your questions in as we go. They're private until we answer them, and normally what we'll do is just answer most questions verbally at the end of the session. We'll present to you for around 35-40 minutes, and then we'll have a good kind of 10-minute session to get some of those questions answered at the end. When we move into that question session, you'll also get a poll pop up on your screens, just a chance to let us know if you want more information or if you want to be in touch and set up any follow-on calls after the session. Okay, so I'm going to keep my preamble as quick as I can. Jeff is definitely the person who's doing the interesting stuff this morning, but I'll just do a really quick introduction to set the scene from a technical point of view of Blackbird. Obviously, this is a technical and product-based session, so we'll get stuck right in there. So very quick introduction. Blackbird is a cloud-based video editor. You probably all know that already. What we do is we allow customers to access their media. That can be live streams or file-based content that exists on-premise or in the cloud, and then to do functions such as fast turnaround clipping and sequencing. That's something that we talk about quite a lot, and you may have seen on other demos or other webinars. Sequencing and metadata and logging functions within the platform, all the way through to a full real-time nonlinear editor. And that's what we're focusing on today, is the advanced side of the tool there. Most important thing of all, this all runs completely natively in a web browser interface, so it's completely scalable as a true cloud solution. And then once you've created a piece of content, we publish, and we'll touch on that today as well. We distribute directly out to various social media platforms, but most of the time actually we're delivering high quality video assets back into OTT, digital, VOD, or even traditional linear broadcast distribution. Okay, so on the agenda today, you may have seen this. When I hand over to Jeff, he's going to do a very quick introduction to the Blackbird editing at a very basic level. And then we're going to focus on two key use cases today. So the first one is this kind of a news multi-box interview edit, and look at some of the tools that we have in the browser to allow us to create that kind of content really quickly and really easily. And then we're going to look at some of the tools we might use in more of a sports highlights edit. So you can see here things like more of the overlays layer and audio layer management and so on. And then we're just going to finish off by touching on a couple of aspects of the publishing side of Blackbird. In the last advanced webinar, we looked at publishing formats and the automatic branding on publishers. Today, we're going to look at how we integrate back into to other systems with metadata, and how we manage audio output as well. Okay, so before I hand over to Jeff, very quickly, what I like to do is just recap if you've seen it before, or introduce the technology if you haven't. And I'm going to do that just starting on the website, because you can come and have a look at this yourself. So I'm on blackbird.video on the solution page here, and there's an example clip using the Blackbird codec. Now, if I play this, you can see I can zoom out here and actually see what media is coming up ahead of me. But I can also start to move through this in a completely non-linear fashion. There is no buffering, no latency, no download time or anything like that. And not only can I move freely through the content instantly, but I can actually come in and access every single image, every single frame within this media. I have other navigational tools as well, playing multiple speeds, playing backwards multiple speeds, and so on. Now, the reason I'm starting here is because this is the technology and the unique patented technology that Blackbird is built on, and it's been developed specifically to allow navigation and manipulation of video in a web browser to a high degree. And you'll know that any other web browser environment is really limited by streaming technology, like an HTML stream. So this is the unique tech that we're built on. And I've got one slide on the architecture to show you how we use this and how this works for you, to set the scene before we speak to Jeff. So what we do essentially is I mentioned before, we don't move your source media. So it can be sat on premise, run, and the Blackbird engine can run on a piece of hardware or a virtual machine, or we can run the Blackbird Edge software application up inside any of the public cloud providers or your own data center. And essentially that Blackbird Edge we can see here is the ingest and publish engine of our workflow. So it sees a file, could be sat directly on your S3 storage or on your on-premise NAS or something like that, or it receives a live stream, and we can see some of the live stream formats here as well. And when it does that, what it's going to do is instantly and on the fly create that Blackbird version that we just saw on the website, and that is what goes to the cloud. So the users log into the Blackbird cloud as a really distinct access layer to this content that allows them instant access to any frame of an unlimited amount of media with no movement of files or downloads or anything like that. The ability to edit on that professionally and then publish. And when we publish, we send basically a metadata command, an EDL, back to the Blackbird Edge running on your infrastructure. And that's going to use your source media for a second time to publish a high quality video file out. So as I said, that can be direct to social media or straight back into your storage mechanisms, wherever they may be, to hand off to a MAM or a CDN or a CMS or something like that as well. Now, the two use cases we've got today actually with sports and news are relevant when we talk about the live stream ingest. We can see the formats there, but actually we also have different ways of ingesting. So as an example, we have customers who will do a 24/7 rolling records. We can chunk into various different amounts of time for navigation, or we can do on-demand push-based ingest from streams, or even scheduled ingest, which is obviously something that applies a lot to sports. So essentially, wherever your content is coming into, you don't send it to us, you leave it where it is. The Blackbird Edge is going to make that accessible in the cloud, and the users can log in and edit. So a couple of key benefits to that. One is obviously you don't have to move that media. If it's in S3, you don't have to bring it out and move it into regionally or move it to persistent disk storage. If it's in an on-premise NAS, you can keep your on-premise infrastructure, and we can give you a cloud workflow layer on top of that. The second benefit to that is that because we're using your source to publish, it's always going to be a high quality video file. So we can deliver anything from a low bitrate H.264 for social media up to a very high quality MXF wrapped file for a broadcast output and everything in between. But the key thing really, as I mentioned right at the start with Blackbird, is around scale. And that's because if you have Blackbird Edge giving access to your content, you can have one user, 10 users, 100 or 1,000 users editing on that. There is no infrastructure change because everyone is logged in on a standard laptop in a standard web browser with as little as 2 megabit internet connection. Whereas, as you probably know, the alternative to that is to either send your content somewhere else or to run up a virtual machine for every single user, for that virtual machine to have local media access, and also for the user to then have some kind of way of connecting to it. So the fact that we can do what we do in a web browser is really critical, and it makes us the only browser-based and therefore truly scalable professional video editor out there. Okay, so that's enough, I think, of an intro to give you an idea of how we architect into our customers' infrastructures. I'm now going to hand the share over to Jeff. And Jeff, I think we're starting off with just a really quick introduction to the kind of editing philosophy, let's say, of Blackbird.
That's true. Hello. Good morning, everyone. It's very early here, so I wish everyone a good morning. I'm guessing my screen is visible and everyone can see. That's wonderful. So I'm Jeff Krebs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through some scenarios of editorial, some advanced editorial features. A lot of people have seen the clipping workflows, but a lot of people haven't seen a lot of the advanced tool sets. So that's some of the things that we're going to do. To begin with, you can see that Blackbird, in this case, is running in a web browser. It's a source edit timeline paradigm. It allows you to have instant and random access, as Ollie showed you earlier on. I'm going to load up a sequence over here just to begin with. So you see something here I've loaded on the timeline. And we could, of course, deal with multiple layers, multiple audio tracks, and we're going to quickly transition into that as well. But just to understand the basic paradigm of Blackbird. Now, Blackbird at its heart is a nonlinear editor, but it's not just a slice and dice editor. It is a true non-destructive editor, which means that you always have access to the content, even if you're trimming it out or extending it back, it is a non-destructive environment, and it's very, very important. It's very, very different than other editors. So you see here we have 4 graphic shots just to begin with. Here we have Blackbird rocks my world. And of course, I do have the ability to do things like extract or lift. I do have the ability to deal with multiple layers. So we have timed based edits, and we also have layer based edits. So you can see over here, when the layer is exposed, you can see you clearly interrupt the process from video layer 1 to video layer 2. So it does work in a very typical layer-based environment. This also allows me to do things like blends between the layers. So you can see I have very quickly been able to blend the layer. Of course, I can trim this up, and that's using it as an A/B roll metaphor as well as a compositing metaphor as well. So that's what we're doing in this environment. And third, you'll see I have a third video track here. As a matter of fact, I do have up to 18 video layers. So we can also use it for compositing purposes. So if I drag and drop something on the timeline, you can see I have the words to the top over here, and we're compositing over nothing, but of course we have embedded alpha channel support. And because we have alpha channel support, we can composite on these layers as well. And it very quickly allows us to work with what we would call a splice, overwrite, extract, lift, trim in a non-destructive manner. Additionally, those types of tools are used in all nonlinear editors. Ours happens to run in the cloud. So what we haven't done is we haven't strayed away from the editing paradigms and the editing equivalents to the other applications that are out there, so much so that we've even have keyboard mapping to all the popular editors that are out there. So your muscle memory will kick in, use Blackbird just like you use any other editor, except now you have big ubiquitous access to the content.
Excellent, thanks, Jeff. So, so that gives us an idea, as we said, of the fundamentals of editing in Blackbird. And I think it's good to start there because, as you said, people make a lot of assumptions about what a browser-based editor is going to be. So using, building on top of this now, let's go to our first use case. This is using Blackbird essentially in an isolated camera news style interview creation.
That's correct. So and I just do want to review the importance of this part, the fact that, of course, that we are a completely frame accurate editor. So when I dug through some of the material over here, you can see it's absolutely frame accurate, the ability to write forward, backwards, things like that. And now we're going to start to look at the layers. So now we have one video layer and one audio track in this case, but I also can add that second video layer. So we have video layer 2 and video layer 1. Now, what I'm about to show you is a little bit different. I want to ensure the sync relationship between the two different cameras is accurate. Typically, what you can do is group the shots together, and then you can do a multi-camera edit. That is not what we're doing here. We did that on the last webinar. What I would like to do is to do our layer check, and our layer check looks very similar to multicam, but each layer is assigned to a quadrant, so much so that if I decided to add another layer, which doesn't exist right now, you can see a third quadrant is added, but I'm going to hide that second layer. So this is going to allow me to do the sync check between the layers first of all.
It takes a village, right?
Oh, without a doubt, even technologically. So
you can see, and don't forget, we are presenting through a Zoom interface, so it is, you may see some delay because of the screen share, but this is absolutely frame accurate, frame synced.
If everyone's ready, I'd love to get started, and we'll give a full introduction. Lisa Donahue.
So this is a typical interview. We have our layer check. It works out okay. Let's just triple check her answer.
We were seeing a lot of distress in a lot of industries. Retail.
Perfect. Okay, so we have our layer check, and we can just toggle in and out of that layer check just like that. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to start exposing some of the sub layers. So now you see video layers on top, but what you also have is sub layers. And if we take a look at some of these sub layers, you can see we have control over color, which we're going to really dive into here, pan and zoom, and additional video effects. And we're going to address all of those today. Today, let's just begin with the pan and zoom. And what I may want to do is start to shrink down the layer. So now I have complete transitional and basically control over the XY coordinates. And you can see I've done that to the top layer. And let's now do this to the bottom layer. I'll just expose the pan and zoom over here. And you see I have the same type of control over here. So I can do kind of a side-by-side comparison and now set this up at kind of as a kiosk effect. What I am going to do just really quickly is I'm going to kind of remove these to begin with. And we're going to look at this in another sequence over here. Clear this out. And here you can see kind of an equal version of it. Here, let me just load that up. There it is. Okay, so now we have these pan and zoom layers just like this. And you can see I have an equal version of the kiosk effect. And this allows me to actually do the interview side by side. So if I wanted to play it, it's almost like a gallery view in Zoom. Let's play it together.
Everyone's ready. I'd love to get started, and we'll give a full introduction.
And let's just jump ahead.
And I wanted to start with
a little bit more.
That were already.
So you can see we have a question and we have an answer. The issue is we may want to pull her image full screen when she answers the question. So you like the gallery view to begin with for the first part of the question, but we want to extend her full screen. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. We're going to disable all the other tracks, and we're just going to disable or enable the pan and zoom layer, just like this. I'm going to mark a range of what I want to pull out. So let's say from this point, which is the start mark, to this point, which is the end mark. And I'm just going to delete the middle so you can see the space left in between. And so here we are in gallery view.
20.
I think we're on track for that. Yes.
Just like that. So it gives you complete control of where you want the shots to go full screen. It is a sub layer. It does allow me to trim it out. So if I'm not exactly where I want her to cut full screen, I just make a trim, absolutely frame accurate, and she jumps full screen.
I think we're on track for that.
Just like that. All of you can tell that when I wanted to do this lineup, I did it roughly at first. I can save templates. I can recall templates. So in a news organization, I have complete control over the ability to reuse these templates over and over again.
That's very cool, Jeff. So essentially, editing on the effect track rather than the video track, just to make it really easy and quick to make that change.
That is true.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned we're going to dive into color correction a little bit. I guess you're going to try and make our interviewee a little less green.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of a problem here, right? Now, again, in today's climate, the issues that we have are we can't really control, what's going to be coming in from probably iPhones or laptops or the lighting conditions. So you're going to want to take control of that. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the color. So we're going to use the ceiling, and I'm just going to white balance. Let's see here. There we go. Let's see if it does it. Stand by for a second. Let's see. There we go. Beautiful. Sorry, my mouse was just doing a little bit weird. So what we've done is we've quickly white balanced the shot. Now, we are dealing with a little bit of overexposure, so I'm going to take the white level down a little bit. I'm going to crush the setup, the dark areas, and give her a little bit more color in the face, and I'll adjust the saturation. These are gestural color correction effects. If we right click, you can see now that the color has been applied to the entire shot very quickly, just like that. So now it's not nearly as jarring. If you see the before and the after, it's pretty dramatic. Now, additionally, what I may want to do is I may want to, let's load up another sequence over here. I may want to adjust something called a vignette. So if we take a look at the full screenshot over here again, let's just go over there. So you can see on video 3, I've added a little bit of a vignette, a little bit of a fall off to the shot. And this, again, can be adjusted through the pan and zoom control. So you can see I could isolate the vignette a little bit in and isolate it out. These are vignettes that were imported as alpha channel effects with soft edges. So full 32-bit control over alpha channel. And you can see I can adjust this. I can maybe pull it to the right, pull it to the left, and have those edges fall off as well. And that gives you a little bit of a look into some of the color manipulation that we can do inside Blackbird.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. So before we move to publish this piece of content and maybe move on to the sports one. What about in the last webinar we looked at bringing in closed caption metadata and passing that straight through with a bit of manipulation. What if you want to add some open captions onto a piece of content?
So this is something that's quite interesting. Because we can pull in closed caption either as a sidecar file, as a live stream, or whatever it happens to be, closed caption is notably not the most attractive font that's out there. It's actually embedded data, and it's used, of course, in North America. It's an FCC requirement that all media has to be closed captioned. But we can take the closed caption and patch it into our subtitle layer. And what's really nice about that is that, and I'm going to show you this a little bit later in a little bit greater detail, is that we can start to stylize the closed caption. So you can see I have control over the type of font that I want to use, the sizing, the position, the color. If I want to add border shadows, things like that, I have those types of capabilities inside Blackbird. But I didn't type any of this content. That's the most important part about this process. None of this has been typed. It has just been data that I used from another source in the open caption or the subtitle track.
Yeah. So we've got a good level of control and manipulation really on every single element of the edit that we're looking at here.
That's true.
So you're going to throw that out for a quick publish, I think?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. So we're going to take this little section here, and I'm going to publish it. It pulls up our JavaScript script screen. I'll put this out to Twitter in this case. Of course, I could add @mentions. I could add emojis, and we could send this out to publish. So there it goes. And this is now queued. Now, what's really interesting about the publish here is, and there it goes, it'll just take a second, is that you will notice that I did not add any branding to the beginning, or I did not add any branding to the end. I did not do any types of overlays. This is specifically in the edit as you see it over here. However, built into our publish, we have branding built into it, and you're about to see it. It's on the final part of the publish.
So the other thing that's really critical for a lot of our customers is the fact that obviously in a normal traditional edit application, you would have to wait for a render to happen at this point, because of course the edit program itself is handling the conform and the render of that. We're waiting to have a look at that piece of content, but as you can see, because the because that engine for Blackbird is back with the source media on your infrastructure, the user is never waiting, and we're never tying up the interface for any rendering at all. It's completely divorced from the user actions.
Correct. So if you watch here's the final render over here. And just watch the end. It's almost there. It's just another couple seconds, and you will see as we get there. All right, I'll just jump over here to the end. There it goes.
Or the effect of the pandemic, we were seeing a lot of distress in a lot of industries.
So we have branding, not just a tail card, but an embedded tail card that includes the alpha channel. So what that means is that any of this branding can be embedded as part of the sequence, as opposed to just a tail card that fades in and fades out. It can actually do a composite brand as well.
Excellent, nice one. Okay, so thanks for that, Jeff. That's really a brilliant showcase, I think. And let's move on now to the second main use case we have here, which is essentially some of the tools that might help us in an environment more familiar here with a kind of sports highlight edit.
Perfect. So we have a little bit of a sports sequence here, right? Something, and it's just kind of this opening. So there may be areas where you need to redact or blur an image, multiple images. It may be moving images. It could be still images. And what we do with blurs is something also very unique. We handle it as a subtract as well. So let's take a look at a shot like this just to begin with. So you can see I have a sequence over here. I'm going to mark an in and an out. And let's say we decide we want to obscure this person's face for some reason. It needed to be redacted for some reason. Let's go into our layouts. I'm just going to change my layout over here just to begin with, just to make this a little bit easier. So here is the blur tool over here. I'm just going to click on that and let's turn on the blur. Okay, so now we've blurred the entire image. That's wonderful for blurring an entire image, but that may not be what we want to do. We may want to blur just a portion of the image. So first thing I'm going to do is add a mask to the blur. Now, the mask is square in shape, so I'm probably want to change that so that it becomes a circle. There we go. So now that we have a circle, we're going to want to maybe scale it down just like this, and we'll move it over this person's face. So now we've blurred the person's face, and let's go back and play it. There. So we have that blur. Very quick. Again, we don't use the R word, the render word, inside Blackbird. Everything has to play in real time. So there we've obscured this person's face. The redaction's very quick. Now the problem with a shot like this is it's not just the blur. It's dissolving. It's dissolving from the previous shot. There's the shot of interest into the next shot, just like that. I may want to be able to go in and fade the blur out. So it's not just a static blur. You can use transitional effects on the subtracks as well. So now we're not obscuring any part of this image, and we're able to blur, and you can see the result of that. So that's blur number one. Another issue that we may have over here, and I'm just going to hide this for a second, is you may have a moving image. You may need to animate this blur over time. So we certainly don't want to obscure the area, the region of interest over this gentleman, but this person in the background may need to be obscured. So what we can do, again, and I'm just going to change my layout so you can see this a little bit better. There we go. So you can see the percentage of motion. We have a little percentage graph showing you from the beginning of the shot to the end of the shot. And then you also have keyframes. These little tick marks are keyframes. So what we're able to do is animate the blur over time, just like that. So it gives you control over not only over still image blurs, but motion blurs as well. Not motion blur in the traditional sense, but motion blur of moving or animating the blur over time. And so these are what we define as news style blurs.
Thanks, Jeff. And it was a relevant point you made about the R word, as you say, rendering.
The R word, yes.
Monitoring some of the questions coming in here, and someone had said, please ask Jeff to play the sequence when he's done. And I guess that is some form of testing.
Yeah, here it is. I'll just play this. By the way, just prove a point. Yes.
So yeah, it's worth mentioning everything we do in the Blackbird editor. The layer management, the effects, the transitions, and everything is real-time rendered by the actual browser itself. So we never send back to a server for previews. It's all contained within the actual browser session of the user, which is why it's instant, completely real-time and responsive, and shows you how powerful the technology is, that not only can we have this level of control and access, but we can actually render all of this 100% real-time in a standard web browser. And there are no toolbars, no extensions, no plugins, or anything else running in that interface either.
That's a very good thing to note as well. And what you'll notice is also what's missing is the plethora of drop-down menus. A lot of what we do is either keyboard-driven or gesture-driven on the screen. So it's very easy to get up and running very quick. It becomes the extension of you. So absolutely.
So I can see you're moving on here, Jeff. One thing we mentioned that's particularly relevant, I think, in the sports world is management of audio tracks. We've done a lot with video so far. Now, certainly over this side of the Atlantic, it's very common not just to have atmosphere in terms of audio tracks and then commentary, but actually even multiple language commentary tracks within the platform. So let's have a quick look at how we manage audio as well.
Perfect. So first thing to note, it's not just an 8-track system, it's actually up to 36 tracks of audio. That's the first thing. So editorial, up to 36 tracks. Number 2, you can control the pan characteristics and the level characteristics. You can animate or adjust levels over time. So you have the ability to keyframe levels. You have what we would define as full powered transitional effects. So we can do audio crossfades. We can do audio crossfades on individual tracks or multiple tracks. So those are the basics to understand about the audio tools, is that you do have a significant amount of audio control over pan and level characteristics. Additionally, and I'm going to, I'll just put on some music here, not to put on the voice yet. Let me just do that. So we could, of course, mute and solo the tracks as well. And you can see we have view style peak meters that are available inside Blackbird as well. So full control over that. Now, the thing that we may want to do, let's actually solo the first track. He was captain of the Sabres from 77 to 81. So obviously the ability, that's my own voice, and that was recorded inside Blackbird using the voice record tool. So it'll use my decent mic, and please excuse the inflection of my voice over there.
I've never heard your voiceover voice before, Jeff.
Well, there you go. It's a go to our tutorials. You'll hear them all day. So you have the voice over here. We have, of course, crowd effects over here. So we have specific sound effects. Just like that. We have a full powered cross dissolve, and of course we have the music. I can turn on all the tracks just like that. I'm just going to turn this down. I just don't want this to overpower people's speakers. I'll turn this down, and we can have a full mix. He was captain of the Sabres from 77 to 81. His number 18 now hangs in the rafters. Please welcome Danny Gare. Now, that music may be a little bit loud at that point, so I can control it as a stereo pair if I want. And you can see in the sublayers, I have the ability to adjust these levels. Now, it's not just play, adjust and play, it's adjust while play, which is something that's very different. So let's take a listen. So it's real-time adjustment of the audio levels and pan characteristics, and of course, to see the full output. Finally, on the audio part of this webinar, it's not just a mix down either. It's independent track output. If you want to publish to be set up like that, we can take out up to 16 independent tracks and then embed it in supported video formats as well. So it's 36 audio tracks, excuse me, for editorial, 16 out, or we can of course do a full mix down if we wish as well. So you have control of all over that.
We're going to have a quick look at that on the publishing side in a minute when we get there.
Correct.
As well. Okay, so let's move on to that in a second. Did you want to caption this piece, Jeff, before we talk about?
Absolutely. So let's do a final caption on this, and we'll go over here. Just trying to, there we are. Perfect. So remember we spoke about open captions at first, and we spoke about rather closed captions at first, and we talked about how unattractive closed captions are. Now, this is closed caption work. Of course, we can completely edit this content in closed captioning. You can see I can adjust the position of this. I can do all of these other things. I can completely edit the closed captions as well. And that's fine. And it is non-destructive as well. So we excuse me, so we can extend out and trim these captions just like that. But additionally, if I do have a preset, this caption, especially in live workflows, can also be deployed and arrive in a subtitle track. So there you can see the the closed caption. There you can see the stylized open caption underneath. So for social publishing, it allows you to take that data and propagate it to other tracks as well. So there you can see multiple caption tracks, open and closed, inside a single sequence, as well as, of course, all the fabulous voiceover work that I did a little bit earlier, completely on that sequence as well.
Awesome. Okay, so just to finish off then, one or two more minutes, and we were going to talk about publishing. Someone has asked a very relevant question, which leads us into this nicely, about publishing to social media with metadata. Now, you notice when Jeff did a Twitter publish before, we got a pop-up that allowed him to type a tweet. And as he said, to support user account lookup and things like that. But actually, any one of those publish buttons that we've got there available, and you can have as many of these as you want, they're completely custom, can have its own metadata published, Jeff, I think.
That's true. That's true. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I could do very quickly over here, I'll just take this sequence, and so it's additional. This is kind of the easy look at it in terms of metadata. So this is kind of the YouTube API. It allows you to add any of the things into the YouTube channel, just like that. However, if we take a look at a more advanced view, what you'll see, this is something that is unique. It allows us to do an XML sidecar and pre-stack drop-down menus, things like that, you know, of whatever your content or whatever the categories has to be. So, and we can, of course, you can see this happens to be a Bright Cove delivery. So it allows you to do radio buttons, all sorts of things. This is unique in Blackbird. It gives you the ability to really adjust the personality of the XML that we've created over here. So lots of control over that type of delivery.
Excellent. So not only have we got different contextualized metadata inputs for each social platform, but actually we can deliver the right file format file quality and so on, along with a custom XML sidecar that's going to make sense to your MAM or your CMS or CDN or whatever that piece of content is going to go to as well.
Correct. And this is quite new, by the way, this part of Blackbird. We've always had really extensive publishing capabilities, but one of the things that a lot of people want to do is multi-distribution points. So including from a single source. So you can see in this example of, it seemingly looked like a simple XML delivery. But I'm also defining that I want to deliver captions, DNX HD, H.264, a thumbnail for social purposes, XDCAM for linear broadcast, and the XML sidecar as well. So this allows us to do a multi-point, multi-distribution publish from a single button.
Excellent. And the one other thing that isn't necessarily a part of the demo, but we've talked about managing audio on the timeline itself. Within the publish functions, when we're configuring those, we can also route audio tracks there. So, it's possible for us to have a publish button that will always send your language tracks on your 5 and 6 stereo pair into track 1 and 2 on the publish function.
That is true.
So there's routing in the actual publish function, and then obviously there's management on the timeline as well.
That's correct. So that allows you to do independent track output as opposed to a mixed down track. That is correct. True.
Excellent. All right, brilliant. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. That's our time, I think, for the demo. So I'm gonna pinch the screen share back, and we'll come over and answer some questions, I think.
Absolutely.
If anybody you're going to get the poll up now, I believe. And as I said, let us know if you wish to have a follow-up here or get some further information from us. You can also get in touch on the email address you can see on the screen now as well. Okay, so we've knocked off a couple of questions as we went, but we'll answer some more now. Jeff, if you see any you want to pick up, you can.
Sure, I'm just looking through this because I was focused on my first screen. So
otherwise I'll let you have a sip of water, and I can answer a couple first. So we talked about subtitles and captioning a bit here. Somebody asked about supporting multiple tracks. Yes, we support multiple tracks of both the kind of open caption or subtitles, you might call it, which are burnt in, and multiple tracks of the metadata-based closed captioning as well.
That's true. Yeah.
So that can come through as essentially a Unicode embedded metadata track inside the content itself. And I've got a question as well that I'll take here about collaboration. So Blackbird is built to be collaborative as a cloud-based and essentially metadata-based platform. It gives us a lot of options around tracking what happens. We have full recovery and version control within the platform that allows people to do one of two things. So either collaborate live. If we look at how we log and other functions within the platform, you can have multiple people live collaborating on that kind of function. But what we don't do is allow more than one user to edit on the same timeline at once. For fairly obvious reasons, it is a bit of a hot mess from a user point of view. So what we do actually is we can either save and hand off at any point in time. So of course there is no transfer of media to happen here at all. If a user in one location in the world creates a sequence or an edit, a user anywhere else in the world can instantly pick that up and carry on and continue to manipulate that content. Or if Jeff is in the middle of his edit and I want to come and pick up from what he's done already, I can open that myself and actually branch off into my own version.
Yeah, and an important note at that point as well is that every user is specifically that, an independent user. So if Ollie's working on an edit and I pick up that edit, the edit becomes mine, but I do not step on or destroy any of the work that Ollie has done. So you are completely protected. It is actually technically impossible in our platform for one user to step on another user's work.
Yeah. And in terms of collaboration and communication, we also have an internal chat tool. So users can chat to each other. They can chat as a group within their account, and they can also chat directly to our support team right within that editor interface as well. And that's a really key element in terms of communication. Actually, one of the questions was about audio intercom. We don't have support for audio intercom within the platform because essentially Blackbird is not normally, it's not a live production tool in terms of switching and outputting any live. Although we're working on live content, it's a post tool. So it tends to be more of a producer, editor, or that kind of role, and we have the communication within the platform for that. I'll grab another one here about role-based functions, or you can answer this, Jeff, if you want. So specifically, and we do have roles in Blackbird. We have the concept of a logger or a clipper or an editor or various things that determine what functionality you have. This question is specifically, Jeff, about controlling where they can publish to. So can one group of users only publish to Twitter and so on?
Absolutely. So the role-based, there's multiple roles. That's the first thing. And then each part of Blackbird has role control over it. So the interface absolutely has role control over it. And the publish also has role control. So what this means, if you are an editor and a reviewer, and you are the two people who are allowed to publish to a social channel or to an output, the other users will not see those outputs. Only the roles that have been assigned can actually see the output. So control over roles for publish is absolutely critical, and we completely support that.
Excellent. Okay, so next question here, something that a few people might be thinking about: do we support SRT as a live ingest point? The straight answer to that is no. So we saw a variety of live ingest methods there. We take even baseband SDI on premise as a live ingest format, RTMP and HLS. We work with Zixi as an ingest source, and we can read pretty much any closed file format and also growing files as well. So as an example, we could read a growing MXF encode or something like that. SRT is absolutely on the radar, but to be honest, we tend to add new formats on demand. So as and when we need it, that I'm sure will end up as something on the platform. But as of today, it's not currently supported.
Right. I see there's the features of the editor compared to DaVinci Resolve or Blackmagic Resolve. How does Blackbird stand up? So to be really, really clear, we are obviously vastly different in terms of where we can access it, but in terms of the editing paradigm, the very first thing, the splice, overwrite, extract, lift, trim, layer, composite, that's where we have similarities, that we don't really change the rules of editorial just because we run in a browser. We keep the same on-premise rules, except for the ubiquitous access, which of course we excel in beyond scale. But in terms of editorial tools, we're comparable. In terms of other things like, that Resolve is absolutely a color grading system, and that's where its genesis was. And we certainly, we're not there to replace that type of environment.
No, understood. And actually, if any of the eagle-eyed attendees out there might have noticed when I did that architecture slide, that is the reason we do have the ability, as well as exporting finished video files, as we've been discussing, we have the ability to actually export essentially an EDL from Blackbird. And the most common workflow that we do in that area is delivering an AAF back into an Avid or a Premiere infrastructure for grading functions and other kind of really craft finishing functions there as well. Excellent. So we've got just a couple more questions here, and I think we're going to probably run out of time. Thank you all for being so engaged and sending us your questions in here. An interesting one about QC and or quality checking on media. Now, this is a bit of a half and half, Jeff, I suppose, because
it is. Yep.
We as you can see, what you're not going to use Blackbird for is a full visual QC on a professional graded output monitor, because we're browser based. But the fact that the codec is so accurate helps us out on that front, doesn't it, Jeff?
And it's also right from the ingest stage. Because we do follow the standards of what the file of the originating, whether they be camera original or source stream file formats are. So if we proxy against it, we know that we have a solid file, at least on the ingest part as well. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we'll grab one more. This is definitely one for you, Jeff.
Which one are we looking at?
There's a question here about patching source audio tracks while we're bringing media into the timeline.
Absolutely. So the way this works is we absolutely can have the patching system. Very much like any other application, your source patching up, if you ingest 8 audio tracks and you need to patch them around, so it originates on tracks 1 and 2 and you have to patch those out to tracks 7 and 8. Absolutely, we have a full patching system completely embedded. Our entire application is based on a patching system.
Excellent. Okay, all right. Well, I think that's our time. I will say thank you very much to everyone who has attended today. I hope it was interesting and informative. Please do get in touch. Let us know, even if you're just curious and you want some more information on the product or the solution. We're always happy to talk. So yeah, thanks again, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you soon. Jeff, thanks to you as well. That was brilliant.
Thanks. Cheers. Okay, bye.